In Burundi, Central Africa, a young man named Jojo finds a mass grave containing several human bodies. With the help of forensic anthropologist Dr. Kathy Andrews, the army discovers that this horrific situation was caused by the civil war in the region. The team then sets up camp and begins investigating the site, when Kathy finds traces of another ditch near the river. With a shovel, she begins digging in search of more bodies, but suddenly, the doctor feels a strong tremor coming from the earth. Immediately afterward, a huge animal leaps from the river and attacks Kathy, who is pulled underwater in a matter of seconds. The colonel calls his team and tries to eliminate the creature, but all he sees is the churning river water, and shortly after, everything falls completely silent. Finally, Kathy's body begins to float in the river, but her head has been removed, and what remains is pulled to the bottom of the water. Far away, in New York, a TV program interviews a businessman who claims to have been unjustly accused by a local reporter. This reporter is Tim Manfred, who, according to new information, used false evidence in his story. Tim watches everything from inside the office and tries to explain that he believed his sources, but he is soon called to his boss Roger's office. The reporter tries to explain himself, but Roger gives him one last chance to keep his job. He then introduces him to Aviva Masters, a reporter specializing in wildlife, who is planning to do a story on the incident in Burundi. She recounts that in the region lives a huge Nile crocodile, known to the locals as Gustav. It is the largest predator on the entire African continent and was responsible for devouring the anthropologist, Dr. Kathy Andrews, a case that gained international fame. Aviva then asks Tim for help, and despite having no experience in the field, he agrees to go along to keep his job at the newspaper. Days later, the two travel to Africa, and Tim decides to take Stephen, his cameraman and best friend. Upon arriving in Burundi, they are met at the airport by Harry, who warns them about the civil war taking place in the region. He explains that guerrillas are attacking villages, led by a man known as Little Gustav, a reference to the local predator. For this reason, the group will be taken aboard a military ship docked in the port, where they will meet the fourth member of the expedition, Matt Collins. He is a crocodile expert and intends to capture the animal to showcase it on his TV program. With the team ready, they set off down the river towards the village where Gustav was last seen. The journey proceeds without major problems until, in the middle of the night, gunshots are heard, and the soldiers warn that guerrillas are attacking the ship. Despite the surprise attack, the soldiers eliminate the snipers in a few minutes, thanks to the ship's heavy weaponry. Luckily, no one on the crew was injured, but Tim soon realizes that the crocodile won't be the only threat on this expedition. The group then continues their journey to the northern region of Burundi, where a humble village lies near the lake. At dawn, a small dog perched on a raft begins to bark towards the water, near where a little girl had left her doll. She then swims to retrieve it, but tragically, Gustav suddenly appears and attacks her. Hours later, Tim and the others make another stop and meet Jacob, a famous hunter in the region, who has been hired to help them locate the crocodile. He already knows about the incident with the little girl, and advises the group to eliminate the predator, as it won't allow itself to be captured alive. Matt is against the idea, because despite everything, Gustav is a rare specimen that must be preserved. Furthermore, he reveals that he brought parts to assemble a gigantic cage, which will be used to capture Gustav. Jacob doesn't believe it's possible to capture the animal, but he still decides to accompany the group and takes them to the village where the attack occurred. Upon arriving, everyone is warmly welcomed by the people, who, despite Gustav's threat, must remain in the area because their entire livelihood depends on the river. To warn them of the crocodile, they leave a dog on a raft, which alerts them whenever it senses something strange approaching. Aviva takes a liking to the little dog and decides to pull it back, offering it something to eat. At nightfall, the group goes to have dinner with the villagers, and after the meal, they are introduced to their leader, a shaman who performs a ritual to protect the travelers from what they will encounter. The next day, the village youths help Matt assemble his cage and offer to transport it in exchange for money for the village. With everything ready, they walk to the river, and along the way, they encounter a group of heavily armed guerrillas. Despite the threat, the men merely observe them and allow them to pass, with Stephen recording everything on his camera. At the end of the day, the group sets up camp near the river, and Jacob shows Tim a concoction he created to lure Gustav. Upon opening the jar, the reporter feels ill from the smell, and the hunter explains that he made a special mixture with blood. Matt says that this won't be necessary, because in addition to the cage, he brought a dart gun, which he will use against the creature. Jacob warns him that tranquilizer darts won't penetrate the scales, but Matt explains that this dart actually contains a signal flare. If they manage to hit it, they'll always know where the crocodile is. Even so, Jacob decides to use his method, and inside the cage, he places a still-living goat and covers it with the mixture to serve as bait. After setting up camp, the villagers take their payment and leave, except for the little dog, who decides to stay with Aviva. She then agrees to adopt him, naming him Coyote, and takes him into her tent. At nightfall, the reporting team is introduced to Jojo, the same young man who participated in Dr. Kathy's expedition, and he offers to help capture Gustav. Hours pass and the group awaits Gustav's arrival when they notice a strange movement in the river. Through the cameras, Jacob sees the crocodile approaching, and quickly, he and Matt go to check if the trap in the cage will work. With his weapon at the ready, he watches the water moving faster and faster until the creature approaches the cage. Everyone expects him to fall into the trap, but Gustav proves to be smarter and retreats, heading back to the river. Still, Matt has the crocodile in his sights, and with a precise shot, manages to attach the signal dart to its scale. The following morning, Matt continues to pick up Gustav's signal with a portable device, but he decides to try a different kind of bait and asks the group to bring him the carcass of an animal. While they prepare the new trap, with the gorillas chasing after them. In addition to conventional weapons, the men possess rocket launchers, which they fire at the group, who barely manage to escape. To increase their chances of survival, Tim orders everyone to split up, and the four spread out across the field, with the gorillas going after Aviva first. The reporter flees as fast as she can and is about to be captured when Jojo appears in front of her and shoots at the car's windshield. Unfortunately, his shots are useless, and the young man is forced to flee when he is hit by a shot from the gorilla fighter, which strikes his shoulder. The shot sends Jojo falling into the river, but the gorillas don't notice the hole ahead, and their car plunges in. The driver survives, but the shooter is thrown by the impact, crashing hard into a tree trunk. Even wounded, Jojo gets up and tries to escape, but the gorilla fighter also jumps into the river, holding a machete. The man knocks the young man into the water and tries to kill him, but soon after, Tim appears, pointing Jojo's weapon at the madman. He orders him to release the boy and leave. However, the gorilla fighter is not intimidated and slowly walks towards Tim. The reporter then pulls the trigger, only to discover that the gun was unloaded, and the gorilla fighter begins to attack him with blows. Tim doesn't give up and manages to twist his opponent's knee with a kick, while Jojo grabs the last bullet remaining in the gun. The two continue to fight, and despite his efforts, Tim is gradually defeated, and the gorilla fighter takes him down to the ground, about to finish him off. However, Jojo hands the last bullet to Aviva, who, holding the gun, aims directly at the gorilla fighter's head and pulls the trigger. With the man eliminated, the group is safe for now, but in the middle of the chase, they ended up losing Steven. The cameraman managed to take another path along the river and tries to return to dry land when he comes across a snake hanging from a tree. Steven backs away, but ends up injuring his arm on the thorns of a plant, and begins to bleed. The problem is that the blood falls into the lake and attracts Gustav, with the enormous crocodile appearing behind Steven. With no time to lose, the cameraman runs as fast as he can, but the creature is faster and is about to catch him. This seems to be the end, but Steven leaps between two trees, trapping the head of the enormous crocodile. He then seizes the opportunity and runs away, leaving his camera behind, which seconds later shows Gustav managing to free himself from the trees. The chase continues, and Steven runs for his life, but the enormous crocodile charges forward at high speed to capture its prey. Far away, Tim tries to find Steven but can't locate him, and Jojo is losing a lot of blood from his shoulder wound. They no longer know what to do, but suddenly, a car appears on the scene bringing Harry, who has come to rescue them. Tim tells him what happened to the rest of the group, and Harry promises to take them back, but first asks what happened to the recording on the computer. The reporter finds the question suspicious, since it didn't mention the recording, and seeing that he's been discovered, Harry orders his soldier to subdue Tim and Aviva. The man then reveals himself to be Little Gustav, leader of the gorillas, and that he's after the recording because it's proof of his involvement in the Civil War. Tim refuses to say where he is, but Harry starts attacking Aviva and threatens to eliminate her right there. With no other choice, Tim reveals that the computer is equipped with a type of beacon, which can be located with his portable tracker. Harry then tells the reporter to show him the way, unaware that Tim intends to lead him straight to the giant crocodile. At nightfall, the reporter sees the tracker signal around the river, and upon reaching the shore, Harry finds one of the boats used by the team. He then orders everyone to climb on top of him, and minutes later, they arrive at the location indicated by the tracker. Hearing that the crocodile will appear, Harry orders Tim to retrieve the computer. Otherwise, his soldier will eliminate them both without hesitation. Tim agrees to do it, but first, he retrieves one of the bottles containing the mixture Jacob created from inside the boat. The reporter pretends it's an energy drink and gives it to Aviva, telling her to use it whenever needed. After that, Tim goes to the indicated location and finds the signal dart, but the crocodile isn't around. Instead, Tim finds Steven's body in the middle of the lake, and unfortunately, he couldn't escape the large crocodile. Tim laments his friend's tragic end, but he finds a knife beside his body, and with a surprise attack, he eliminates the soldier with a precise strike. Hearing the noise, Harry asks what happened, but Aviva pours the foul-smelling mixture on the madman and tries to escape. She manages to rejoin Tim, however, Harry catches up to them and takes down the reporter with 2 shots to his legs. The man then prepares to eliminate them right there. However, the 3 hear Gustav approaching, who, in the darkness, chooses who he will attack first. Luckily, the crocodile decides to go after Harry, and the madman tries to escape, but Gustav is faster and devours him with a single bite. Tim and Aviva waste no time and flee back to the boat, where Jojo is waiting for them, still with his injured shoulder. To the group's surprise, they hear barking coming from the river, and Aviva finds Coyote, who is still alive, and the little dog tries to swim back to shore. Quickly, the reporter goes to pull him out of the water, but Gustav reappears and advances towards the group. Tim then accelerates the car and runs over the enormous crocodile, pushing it back into the water and saving Aviva and Coyote. With everyone inside the vehicle, Tim steps on the gas, but the rear wheels get stuck in the mud. To make matters worse, the crocodile returns, and with its strength, it bursts through the trunk of the car and tries to devour everyone inside. However, Gustav ends up trapped, and Tim manages to find a machete in the car and uses it to attack the creature's mouth. Thanks to this, the enormous crocodile retreats, and the group manages to escape, leaving behind the largest predator in all of Africa. Days later, Aviva and Tim take a plane back to America, taking Steven's camera with them, containing the last recordings of their friend. In addition to them, Jojo is also on the plane, alongside Coyote, fulfilling his dream and about to see his new home. As for Burundi, the government managed to end the civil war in the region, and the villagers are living in peace, at least for now. Nevertheless, Gustav is still alive, and he continues to roam the rivers of Africa, searching for new prey. Steven decides to take a walk around the field, as he wants to capture more images of the area. Using his camera, he begins to record all the beauty of the African landscape, but the cameraman soon hears the sound of approaching footsteps. Steven hides in the bushes and sees a group of gorillas who have captured the village shaman and his family. They appear to be interrogating the family, but the shaman refuses to speak, so one of the gorillas takes a machete and cuts off his head. Unable to do anything to help, Steven secretly records everything and returns to the campsite. He then shows the recordings to Tim and Aviva, who, horrified by what happened, suggests they take the footage to the authorities. Jacob warns that it will be useless, as the army will not interfere in the civil war, and Matt says that the focus of the expedition is to find the crocodile. The reporter is outraged by this and leaves for her tent, but Tim and Steven promise to take the recordings to the UN to deal with the matter. Meanwhile, Jojo sneaks into the cage and, without hesitation, begins calling out to Gustav, challenging him to a confrontation. It seems the young man has a greater interest in capturing the monster, but instead of appearing in front of the cage, the crocodile appears right beside it and bumps into the structure. The blow causes the cage gate to close, trapping Jojo inside, and the young man calls for help. Not satisfied, Gustav jumps over the enormous cage, and thanks to his weight, he manages to tip the structure towards the river. Jojo cries for help and rush to save him, when they see the enormous crocodile advancing towards the young man. Jacob wastes no time and throws a grenade towards the river, but as he's about to throw another, Matt stops him, as he's not going to miss the chance to capture the animal alive. With the crocodile approaching, Tim jumps into the water to save Jojo, but one of the soldiers grabs his gun and starts shooting into the river. Steven stops him before he hits his friend, and seconds later, Tim emerges from the water, bringing Jojo to safety. The boy, however, is not breathing, and Steven performs CPR until Jojo regains consciousness. Tim asks why he did it, and Jojo says he wants to help them capture the crocodile in exchange for a visa to live in America. The soldier becomes enraged by the boy's attitude and starts kicking him, with Tim and Steven stepping in front to protect the boy. The soldier then leaves, but Jojo runs away scared and walks off alone into the middle of the field. After that confrontation, Gustav escaped, and Jacob confronts Matt, saying that the animal needs to be eliminated before it's too late. Minutes later, at the camp, Aviva goes to check on Coyote, but hears the dog's pained barks inside the tent. Immediately afterward, the same soldier who was with the group appears, and upon seeing the reporter, he points his gun at her and orders her to go into the tent. Inside, the man tries to attack Aviva, but she manages to defend herself and kicks the madman away. The soldier persists and heads towards her, but unfortunately for him, Gustav bursts into the tent and begins to devour him. Aviva seizes the opportunity and flees, but Tim finds her covered in blood and asks what happened. Still in shock, the reporter can barely speak, and the group returns to the camp, where they find the place destroyed, along with the soldier's body. Seeing that the crocodile is a greater threat than they thought, Tim calls everyone back and cancels the expedition. Matt tries to convince him to stay, since Gustav is nearby, and they can still end the expedition by capturing the animal. The two argue, while Jacob goes to collect the equipment and overhears another soldier speaking through a communicator. He realizes that the man is working for the guerrilla group, just like the soldier who attacked Aviva. Jacob then rushes to warn the group, but before he can, he is hit by a shot fired by the soldier, who surrenders the group and orders them all to walk to the river. Upon arriving, he orders everyone to kneel with their backs turned, but Steven refuses, and a gunshot is heard by the group. Tim believes his friend has been eliminated, but instead, the soldier falls after being shot by Jojo, who appears holding a shotgun. Steven thanks him for his help and promises he'll get him to America no matter what. Now that they're out of danger, the group heads to a tent above the river, and Aviva tries to use the communicator to call for help, while Tim bandages Jacob's wound. Feeling increasingly weak, the hunter recounts that years ago, he confronted Gustav when the crocodile attacked his wife in the river. Unfortunately, she didn't survive, and Jacob used his gun against the creature, but the shots only left scars on his body. He insists the crocodile needs to be eliminated, and as he feared, Gustav reappears, with everyone hearing the sound of the flare approaching. Tim quickly grabs his gun and fires at the creature, but the crocodile uses its strength and begins to thrash against the tent's support beams. With the structure beginning to sink, Matt tries to escape across the bridge, but Gustav attacks the structure, causing it to collapse. The man then runs back and jumps towards the tent, but the crocodile attacks again, this time from underneath the tent, throwing everyone into the water. Being easy targets for the crocodile, Tim calls everyone to climb onto what's left of the tent and helps Jacob, who is still badly injured. However, the hunter intends to finish off the monster once and for all, so he pulls out his last grenade and waits for the creature to attack. Immediately afterward, Gustav leaps out of the water and catches Jacob with a bite, pulling him to the bottom of the sea. Seconds later, the group hears the sound of an explosion, and they believe that the hunter has finally managed to eliminate the monster. Unfortunately, his sacrifice was in vain, and the crocodile not only reappears alive, but also throws Jacob's body into the air and devours it with its sharp teeth. After feeding, Gustav leaves, and the group spends the night in what remains of the tent, unsure how to get out. At dawn, they see a helicopter flying overhead and need to cross the river to get help. Despite the risks, Steven is the first to jump in, and he wades across the water with his camera, with no sign of the crocodile nearby. The rest of the group follows him, and as soon as they reach solid ground, they run towards the helicopter, calling for help. Suddenly, an explosion occurs in the field, and Tim tells everyone to take cover, but Matt continues running towards the helicopter when he is hit by a car. From inside, 2 more gorillas working for little Gustav emerge, and they seem to be searching for something. The group hides among the bushes, and the young man reveals that the gorillas were informed about the video of the shaman's death. If this video leaks to the authorities, they will be in serious trouble, and that's why the gorillas are searching for the recording. Tim reveals that the video was stored on a computer inside a briefcase, but during Gustav's attack, the briefcase was lost, taking the recording with it. Finally, the 2 gorillas stop searching, and the younger of them finds Matt lying on the ground, too weak to get up. Seeing that the computer is not with him, the man pulls the trigger and cowardly eliminates the specialist, emptying his weapon into him. Tim and the others can do nothing but hope their presence goes unnoticed. However, the second gorilla fighter becomes suspicious that there is someone else nearby, and begins firing from between the bushes, the bullets narrowly missing the group. Steven suggests trying their luck by confronting them or fleeing, but only Jojo has a weapon to defend himself, containing only 3 bullets. Even so, the group decides to take the risk, and the 4 run across the field. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.